So in terms of recruitment, just look around the table, what sort of things are people using at the moment to recruit their volunteers? What was that? Sorry?
Social media.
Social media? Yep.
We've got it in Spanish.
Website?
It's through the website.
Yep.
We've got volunteers through there.
Cool. Anyone using community notice boards, that sort of thing?
Facebook.
Community Facebook, yep. And so the people on, those of you who are using social media, let's just sort of touch on that, because often it's tempting to get our volunteers from within our circle that we already know. Sometimes that is our social media community as well. Really encourage you to think outside the square a little bit, because it works, but you tend to get mainly like-minded people, which is good, but there might be some skills that you're particularly after that aren't sitting in that group. So it's a way also to recruit people to go think a little bit like Wildcats recruitment platform, for example, or community notice boards, that sort of thing, but have a diversity of ways that you recruit. When we see a lot of people kind of, tapping on shoulders, that sort of thing, it works, because sometimes it's really hard to say no when someone taps on the shoulder, right? But that's not necessarily sustainable. If that person's really busy and saying no, that doesn't make you necessarily going to have a sustainable volunteer relationship. So have a think about that, and have a think about the skill set that you're looking for. I firmly believe that our volunteer team should reflect this community that we're serving. So have a think about that as well. What is your client base of people that you're dealing with? What does that look like? And is that reflected in your volunteer team? It's a mix of ages, mix of genders, mix of ethnicities. What does that look like? And just remembering that sometimes people don't necessarily put their hand up to volunteer, particularly some of our newcomers. But if you ask them, they're more than happy. But they don't necessarily come from a culture where they would put their hand up to volunteer. They want to be asked. Yeah, so essentially that recruitment, think about it in a sustainable way. So if you're getting all your people always from the same place, if you're getting volunteers who are already volunteering everywhere else in the community, what does that look like? If there's a little bit of a change in their circumstances and they don't have enough time to continue, what does that look like? Let's try and kind of look outside the square a bit. We've got a heap of interest from young people out this way volunteering. So think about how many young people you've got on board, how you can onboard them if you've got roles that are suitable. If you don't have roles that are suitable, can you tweak some roles so that they're suitable? So, for example, our younger people aren't looking to make a full-time, lifetime commitment to your organisation. They're looking for short, sharp projects, something that they can see an impact of what they've done on the day during that volunteer episode. So the short, snap volunteering. If they have a really good time and they feel valued and worthwhile, then likely they will stay on. But get them through the door on the basis that you're not asking them to sign up for a lifetime, because they don't, that's scary to them. And it's actually reflected globally, that trend. People are looking more for the episodic type of volunteering, which I totally understand. Really, it's not the most convenient way when you're recruiting and organising your volunteer team. You have to induct them, they don't stay for long. I get that. However, it's not about what the organisations want, essentially, it's about what the volunteers are wanting. So we need to be sort of adapting as and where we can to get the volunteers on board, looking after them, and essentially then they will stay on board. So whenever I talk about volunteer recruitment, I always think it's important that people get a good context of what that means. And the reason I do that is that because sometimes I ask organisations, why do people volunteer for your organisation? And they tell me what a great organisation they are, and they are. But there's about 112,000 really good organisation doing really good stuff out there. So you need to know what your point of difference is, and you need to know that story and tell that story well. New Zealanders give more than 159 million unpaid hours to their communities annually, equivalent to about 133,000 full-time jobs, and that's New Zealand. So that's the essence. A lot of people volunteering. There's not as many people volunteering these days as there were, but they're doing more hours. What does that mean? That means that the busy people are even busier, right? So if you've got some of those busy people on your volunteer teams, you really need to be looking after them. That's around burnout, not losing them, because there's plenty of other places that they can volunteer.
Yes.
Sometimes we do lose sight of the volume of volunteering that goes on in our communities. There's 1 million people who identify as volunteering in sports alone annually in New Zealand. So we need to get a glimpse and just reflect on the people that end up volunteering for your organisation rather than that organisation, because that could be the key to successful recruitment.
Yes.
So who's volunteering?
Yes.
Volunteering makes people feel engaged and involved in their communities, and so for that reason it needs to be inclusive, which is why I touched on that, demographics and so on. There are good benefits also from people who, and a lot of motivation these days for people to get involved with volunteering, to get a bit of a taste of what effectively is a workplace, to pick up some skills for our newcomers, a taste of a Kiwi workplace etiquette, an opportunity to meet new people. That community engagement, social engagement remains a key motivator for people to get involved with volunteering in New Zealand.
Yes.
Over 20% of New Zealanders identify as having a disability, and so I'd encourage you to also think about that when you're looking at your volunteer teams. Some of these people find it challenging to get paid work, despite their personal, technical and academic skills. And similarly, we find that they often get pushed back when they apply for volunteer roles. That's actually a missing out on a pool of 20% of people who are putting their hand up, wanting to be engaged in the community.
Yes.
Volunteering opportunity can be seen as a stepping stone for some of them to build on, to get into paid work, enhance their CV, and increasingly that is the motivation that we're seeing. There's the other thing in terms of our young people. When I was growing up, there was plenty of after school work, that sort of thing, and was minimum age.
Yes.
Employment legislation and so on, then that isn't the case anymore. So again, volunteering is a really great way to get something on CVs for our young people. When they go to apply for a course at university, halls of residence, that sort of thing, they will be asked, what have you been involved in your community? So it's a really tangible thing. So when I talk about young people not necessarily wanting to sign up for a long time, one of the tweaks that you could do to your role descriptions and advertising when you go back to the recruitment stage is think about whether you're able to give them a reference, for example. If you put that in the role description that after 3 months we can give you a reference, then you might get a buy-in for 3 months. If you can hang them in there for 3 months, they're likely to stay on if there's something else that's cropped up in their life, if they're feeling worthwhile. So just think about the tweaks that you can make to encourage people to get involved for a start, because once you've got them, then I would suggest that if you look after them, make them feel valued, then they will stay.
Yes.
Employers also look at CVs. The students know that, and that's another reason why they're motivated to get something on their CV, like the volunteering.
Yes.
It indicates really strongly to employers that people are in the community, they're reliable, and if you're giving references, you might be able to talk through how they behave in a team environment, they're punctual, and that sort of thing. You guys are a bit cracked in the corner. Do you want to spread out a bit?
No, I literally just dropped my phone.
You're right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Liz is still a confidence, but that's fine. We're just a little bit of a distraction, I think, but we just want to get sorry.
So one of the other things about the when we It is challenging when people don't stay for long, right? But if we look after them, when they leave, they're still your ambassadors, right? They're still going to remember the great time, what you did, and they're going to tell people about it. So increasingly we're seeing businesses, for example, setting up people to get involved with volunteering on volunteer days. Last year we supported 3,500 hours of that in the community, most of that through businesses. And I would suggest that if you've got a young person who just graduated sitting in a business and people go, oh, we've got a volunteer day, what will we do? And they say, well, I really love volleyball. They had a great time and I volunteered with them when I was whatever. Do you see what I mean? So you're growing sort of not only lifetime volunteers, which is what we need in New Zealand, but ambassadors for your particular organisations as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
A really big benefit of volunteering is the creation of empathy. When we volunteer, we tend to volunteer alongside teams or supporting groups of people who we may not normally come across in our daily life. And as soon as we have a chance to step into the shoes of another person, then that can often guide our actions. And so talking about creating a kinder, more inclusive community, essentially. Feeling engaged, it enhances the way that we interact with other people who then we might be outside of our volunteer role. It's not necessarily somebody different. We're used to meeting different people. So again, it's that raising of awareness and building of empathy. For some organisations more than others, it'll be critical that all team leaders, team members, paid and unpaid, have empathy for the people to whom they're providing services. So in those situations, if your organisation's like that, you need to be creating an opportunity for face-to-face meetings, getting people to spend time listening to people's story of the clients that come in, or you're telling the story and if you use social media, and hopefully you're doing that. That gives the volunteers a better understanding of their role. It validates their decision to give their time to your organisation. That increases the buy-in and will then help with retention of the volunteers. And that validating of a decision to give their time is essential. The main reason why people are not volunteering in New Zealand at the moment is because they say they don't have time. So we've got to get our heads around that. If we can get them through the door and they feel valued, then essentially it's easier for them to give that time. So it's about getting the buy-in, validating their decision to give their time to your organisation is a good one, but they want to keep on doing it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You can't underestimate that there is competition for volunteers. So I just said earlier that we've got less people volunteering these days in New Zealand than 8 to 10 years ago, and doing more hours. So we've just got a certain pool. There's a few changes coming too, which makes it even more likely that people will be more time poor. Volunteers have a choice where to give their time, and their available time to gift is becoming less. Today's lifestyles, we see two-income families and older adults are often choosing to stay in paid work if the opportunity is available to them. Or in New Zealand, there's quite a big number of people moving into support roles for their children's children. They simply don't have the time on their hands as much as they used to. There's also another change that we're starting to see in New Zealand, and that's that increasingly people choosing an option if they have it of a retirement village setting, where there are new opportunities and activities. That means that they simply don't have time for some of the things, including volunteering, which they may have been involved in previously. They may have been involved with their volunteering because that was social interaction, community engagement, and now within a village setting, they've got that on their doorstep, so they may not have to go out to the wider community. We're not sure what that really looks like for New Zealand at the moment, but given that the biggest number of volunteers are 60 years and over, then we need to be really aware of that and trying to think of ways how we might continue to engage with people who are older and have chosen to live as a little bit separately from the wider community.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
there's also projections of less home ownership by retirement age, and that also is likely to increase, have an impact on volunteering. The good news on that is that the highest growth in number of people volunteering, the growth is in that 18 to 30-year-old. So if you've got an opportunity to onboard that age group, then look for it.
Yes.
So what motivates people to volunteer for your organisation? As I said before, when I ask this question, people often tell me that people volunteer for their organisation because they're doing great stuff. That's actually not enough, because there's loads of organisations doing great stuff. So we have to sort of think about the fact that all volunteer roles are important. So all the services that are happening around the community are useful, needed, and there is a wide choice available. So why do they choose your organisation to volunteer? How many people are asking that question when they recruit at the moment? Yeah, so it's a really important question to ask. And the reason is that once you know why they're there, you've got a better chance of, well, you've got a chance then to provide what they came to your organisation for and keep them. So it's key to your retention, is knowing why people come to your organisation. It's also important at that recruitment stage. They might, for example, say, I've heard about your organisation and I don't think you're doing a very good job and I'm here to improve it. You asked, right? You asked why they've come. I would suggest that might not be the best choice for your volunteer team, unless you do feel like you need a bit of a hand to charge it up. But that we want people to be on a volunteer team for the right reasons, to be engaged with your mission statement, with your organisation's values, because that's how you keep them. And that's also how you sustain a volunteer team that is working together, a little bit of playing together, hopefully, but getting the job done very much feeling like a team.
With that as well, I guess you've got a skills gap.
What was that, sorry?
If you've got a skills gap, don't be afraid of recruiting someone who could improve that specific area.
Oh, absolutely.
Like something like IT or systems.
Yeah.
Or, dealing with young people or whatever. If you've got a skill,
absolutely. If someone said, I want to look after your organisation because you're doing great stuff and your social media is rubbish and I could help with that, then you're welcome, not all arms. So long as it's within the vision and, fits in with what you're actually trying to achieve overall, that's a really good point, though. So then we look into the recruitment whole thing. We're interviewing them. It's an opportunity to give information about your organisation as well as the role which the volunteer's interested in. So say, for example, that they decide actually, no, this isn't for them, it doesn't work time-wise or whatever. They now know more about the organisation than when they walked in the door. So therefore, there's a better chance that when they talk to someone down the street, they're going to talk about your organisation. Everyone's looking for funding, everyone's looking for volunteers, except some fortunate organisations. But essentially, the more people you talk to about what you're doing, the better it is, so long as it's good talk, right? So you always have to be setting a good example and sounding like you're doing awesome stuff, even if people don't join your team. So tell them what your organisation does, a little bit about the history, any big projects that might be on the horizon. Ask the volunteer why they want to be with you, be professional. If you're asking for personal data, be aware that under privacy legislation, you should only be asking for information that you need for a particular purpose. So please don't ask volunteers when you're recruiting 101 questions. If they may not end up on your team, you may not need that information. You should ask the holder onto it. Any questions on any of that so far? Any questions from your team?
Nothing online.
Okay, the impact your organisation makes in the community and the benefits for the volunteer. The interview is also the time to tell the volunteer about the impact that you're making. and what being involved with your organisation looks like. Do you offer training, social events? Now, if you ask them back a bit, as we know that you're now going to do, why you joined this organisation, why you want to be here, and they said, I hear you do some regular training and first aid. You need to be providing that because that's what they've essentially come for, right? If they say, oh, I've got friends and they say it's a really fun place to hang out, then you need to kind of tease that out a little bit, find out what people want to. Volunteering is a two-way street, so they're gifting their time to the organisation, but the volunteers also getting some benefit. We don't talk about that enough, but volunteers are motivated always by something, and we need to make sure that they're getting that. Otherwise, we get too much of this glass half empty instead of glass half full. We need to be giving back something to our volunteers. That doesn't have to be something tangible. It might just be about feeling appreciated.
And I'm thinking about putting each volunteer into a specific role. So they take a bit more responsibility. So I feel that I'm playing mother to them a lot. Okay. And that's me naturally wanting to nurture them. Much enough when I'm getting to the stage where it's just too much for me. And I thought that's my stage to do it.
You could have sort of like team leaders or something like that. So a start. And think about what motivates those volunteers. So some of them might want to be nurtured, in which case you're going to have to find another nurturer if you don't want to do it yourself. But some of them might want to step up and look after a team. And then you might think about what sort of training or courses that you could send people on. So mental health education resources have courses, sometimes they're free online on wellbeing. So give people a little bit of training so that they feel empowered to actually then take responsibility for other people's wellbeing. So people sometimes will join your organisation, they're wanting to give back. They might have been on the receiving end of services that you provide. Some want to get out of the house, meet new people, pick up new skills. If you get all that information at that interview stage, early on in the recruitment, then you can build on that as it goes on. It also alerts you to something that might be coming up for them. They might say, you know, I'm currently looking for a job or whatever, and then you go, oh, okay. So figure out what people's actual commitment is at that stage. And having those everyday type conversations is an easy way to do it. How many organisations here have got volunteer agreements in place? When I first started asking that question, I hardly ever got a raised hand, so I'm feeling good. Volunteer agreements are absolutely imperative. If you're looking for a template for a volunteer agreement, you can find one under resources on Vulcan's volunteer management tab on our website. My recommendation is that you have a review period in the agreement so that you might sit down and have a chat after 3 months with somebody and just ask how it's going. And then annually, you won't have to do it every 3 months, but at 3 months, people get a feel with whether they actually want to be with this organisation, and you've already seen whether they're actually turning up on time, that sort of thing. And you just have that conversation. You know, you're always 10 minutes late. Is there another day that would work better for you? The rest of the team's here, we're waiting, yada, yada. Have those conversations earlier on rather than letting them grow. And a volunteer agreement is a tool that enables those conversations, that ensures that those conversations are going to take place. And they should be one-to-one. So sometimes people tell me they've got really big volunteer teams and they just simply can't meet people one-to-one. In that case, then I think it goes back to a little bit like what you were saying, is maybe you have some team leaders who meet people, but really there should be one-to-one conversations going on. Not everyone wants to tell you what's bothering you in a workplace, and essentially because you're volunteering, you're still in a workplace scenario in front of everybody else. So the one-on-one is really a useful tool in retention in particular.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
So you should know why people volunteer for your organisation and offer the things that they want. If, for example, someone says to you, I just heard that you guys do regular social activities, then you've just lost your budget for that, then you need to tell them up front, we would love to have you on board. We're not doing that at the moment though, but we will be down the track or whatever. Just make sure that you're not getting people volunteering under false kind of, in fact, they're getting something that they're not going to get out of the experience.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes.
Is the organisation providing the desired volunteer experience? So you need to know your volunteers to know that. You need to know what motivates them. It needs to be worthwhile. They need to feel good. They need to be looking forward to coming back to their next shift. If they're not, then we've got on our side of the line about 250 volunteer roles sitting there for a volunteer. You will lose them. And worse than that, if they stay in a disgruntled, you might lose another few volunteers as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The volunteer should be looking forward to their volunteer slot. It shouldn't be like a chore. At best, they're going to have warm fuzzies. Second best, they're going to want to come back for their next shift.
Yes, sir.
Need to check too, and if you've got that review process, so you've got that annual review process in place, you need to check. That's the time to check in, has their availability changed? Or is it actually now a real push for them to get there at that time and they'd be better off doing something else? Or actually, this is too physical for me. I'd like is to do some admin for this organisation instead. You need to be having those conversations. Unfortunately, we don't come into volunteer management roles as a career choice. Usually, it's something that tends to just happen. And usually people are either part-time or volunteers themselves in these roles. So we don't necessarily know about these questions that are good to ask. We haven't had to manage people before.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So, and going back to that motivation, McLeod's, this is so old, but it's sort of a really simple way to explain it, because McLeod's motivational theory is around this being sort of three general types of people: need for power, need for affiliation, and need for achievement. So
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
From our conversations, we can figure out whether we've got volunteers who want to lead, and they would fit into that kind of need for power sort of thing. So, and that's absolutely fine, because we always need some leaders. So you've got a whole team of volunteers that are essentially doing the same thing. How would you differentiate around that? You might create a team leader, for example, someone who's going to be the go-to for a particular shift, that sort of thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
There might be a specific project that you can give them, that this is your baby. You run with that, so that they've got something that they're in charge of. They might like a title for their role. Might be as simple as that. Volunteers who have a need for achievement might like to undertake training, and will also like to be recognised for what they do. So that could be a mention in a newsletter, at a social gathering, on your social media page, and look out for local awards that happen from time to time as well. I know they happen out here in Selwyn, and these little markers on the table, that's volunteering Canterbury's annual awards. The nominations are open now, they're closed in May for that. But just think about those opportunities where you can give a shout out to your volunteers.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The volunteers who are motivated by a need for affiliation want to feel part of a team, so part of something bigger. So they're the ones that you need to make sure they're getting all the information about the impact that you're having in the community, telling the story. Just get them really involved in that. because they're probably also the people who are going to talk about it when they are with their friends in whānau. They'll be sharing the experience they're having, and they'll share that whether it's good or bad. So let's hope that they're sharing that it's a good experience. They'll also enjoy a social aspect of volunteering and relationships that they build during their volunteering. They'll look forward to events organised throughout the year. So if you've got something like that that's annually, make sure that they know that it's coming up. You know, that every year on 5th of December, which is International Volunteer Day, or during June, which is National Volunteer Week. And you don't need to organise your own event. You can tap into something that's actually happening already across the country.
Yes, 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 yes.
Okay, recognising our volunteers.
Yes.
There's many ways that we can recognise our volunteers, and again, knowing that motivation is a key. Name badges for people is something that really appeals to people who fit into that power segment. It's about achievement. Nominations for awards are great. It's about affiliation. It's regular get-togethers with other volunteers.
Yes.
So I've put some resources on the table for the sort of some simple things that that we talk about. So does anyone here using Canva?
Yes.
Yeah, so Canva's really excellent in terms of turning out professional looking certificates, social media posts, all sorts of things very easily. So really suggest that you have a look at that. On the Volunteering New Zealand website, they already have their resources up for National Volunteer Week. So they've got certificate templates, thank you cards.
Yes, 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 yes.
Few of thank you cards here. To take they're on the website themselves, but there are a few actually cards there. And on the table we've been really simple, which people on screen are missing out on. But there's some really simple things that you can do that people like that are simple and reasonably cheap. So it plays on word. This sort of thing makes people actually feel really special because you can tell that somebody's actually put this together. So this one's thank you for your commitment, encouragement, investment, involvement, and it's got money stuff in it. The tea bag, yeah.
Can I ask a question regarding that? So in the organisation, we just like funding. Yes. And so you've got like some grant recommendation, that sort of thing, which is fantastic. And I've always felt especially about spending money on our development volunteers, even though they're extremely valued, the money is stuff that's of me rather than the organisation. So let's see, how do organisations like Raj that look on your look at your financial records, how the volunteer, how do they look on that?
So the question, I don't know if the people who are joining us online would have heard that, is around what do the funders think about it spending money on gifts for our volunteers. So many funders will actually say in terms of what they're prepared to fund, volunteer recognition. The big funders totally get that volunteers need to be recognised. They don't want them paid, but they do acknowledge that volunteers need recognition. So every organisation should have a budget for volunteer recognition, and that may not be very much, but
Yes.
it doesn't necessarily need to be very much either in terms of what you can do. So I would say don't, it shouldn't be coming out of your pocket. The organisation can't exist without volunteers. It's a little bit like counting volunteer hours. Does everybody here count in their volunteer hours? If you don't count your volunteer hours, then how do you go to the funders and say, we're doing so much, we've got so many volunteers? That's essentially, it's the same thing. The funders ask for your volunteer hours, right? When you fill in all your end of year stuff with charities, register, they ask how many volunteer hours. It's recognised that there's volunteers putting in time. And then that time has been supplemented by financial assistance from funders. So
Yes.
it's a kind of that's what you're gifting, people's time, but they get it. That means that they don't have to gift you even more money because there's volunteers making a contribution. So the funders do get that there's a need for volunteer recognition. That's not to say that all funders will contribute to volunteer recognition, but all funders contribute to paid staff salaries either. So it's just finding the organisation, the funders that do support volunteer recognition and putting it in your budget. Going to your government, your governance team and saying, I need a budget. I've got 60 volunteers or I've got 5 volunteers. I want to take them out for lunch once a year. What does that look like? The things that we put on the table really, I can't remember the figures, but if you buy a box of
Yes. So
finance English breakfast tea, about $7 or whatever, 50 bags, and put a sniffle on it. People like that sort of thing. They feel special because that's taken a little bit of time to do something like that. And you can have a bit of fun with it. So if you don't have much of a budget, there's things that you can do pretty cheap.
It's just the words that, guilty of putting that on our account.
Yeah, some of that. I need to feel guilty about that.
I don't know if that would be a reflection on future funding that was accessible.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did at MS and Parkinson's year before last is we did approach the new worlds around us that aligned, geographically. And we got them to actually give us gift vouchers that could be used to purchase those things. And they loved it because it was an alignment to the cause, your charitable cause. But also for them, they're not having, because it's going to be spent back in their shop. It's a really, it's a really good thing. So that worked really, really well for us to go out and purchase, whatever.
Yes, because we do like to do like an end of year barbecue and maybe get a small box of chocolates and things like that.
Yeah.
But I just didn't know how that would reflect our future partnership things.
So all this wants and volunteer recognition is your opportunity.
Okay.
But also you're not making volunteering sustainable by paying for yourself.
Yeah, no.
Because basically the expectation is, I know your experience that leadership comes with financial responsibility.
Yes.
And that's not voluntary, it's not a job. So you can write a card yourself. Cards great. Catch them being good, it's great. And just like, when I'm at school and I'm like being, I'm best all the time, but same thing else. I really noticed what you did say. Sometimes that verbal feedback's worth more than any stuff.
Absolutely.
But notice that things are tuning up. That's how you can battle down. Actually, yeah, 4% investment will maybe 100%. So budget for it, make it happen.
And it can be, if it's not, it doesn't necessarily have to be an event or something like that. So, for example, there are these little post-its that you can just white rice, break in box and stuff. It says, thank you for sticking with us at Volunteering Canterbury. So you might know, for example, that someone's having a bit of a hard time or struggling to get their shift or whatever. And it's just recognising that they're a person, they're not a human resource, a thing, they're actually a person, keeping those connections going. But those sorts of things definitely put it in your budget, and funders won't think that that's strange at all. They possibly ask why you haven't done it before.
yes. So
There's also tax issues that need to be looked at, aren't there? So again, there are also tax issues that you have to be careful of spending too much on it, recognising.
So financial benefit, you have to be careful of. So little gifts, that sort of thing. Petrol vouchers is one that comes up quite a bit. And we've actually got Daryl from IRD coming out here. Lizzie might remember the date, but she can't. And I'll send it around in an email from IRD to talk about the reimbursement of volunteers. So yes, that IRD looks very carefully at things like petrol vouchers. Now I know in this room, possibly even it's happening that people dish out petrol vouchers. It's swift, it's easy, and often they get organisations that donated petrol vouchers. However, if that can be seen to be a reimbursement of cost, it's not technically, because if you get a $10 petrol voucher and it only costs $4 to get there, then you've got an income of $6, which is taxable. So Daryl will answer all those questions. What is the date?
Yes, so,
June.
yes,
Yeah. At 1 o'clock.
And the other option as well is you're going to claim the case, which is what we're doing. Yeah. Yeah, we haven't fight everyone's wrong.
What was that?
We fight everyone's wrong. But on the way this around and fight, we find that she's wrong.
Like we already back on to you.
Yeah. I didn't at the beginning because I was expecting a flurry of people to come through the doors, and that didn't happen. So yeah, let's actually just hear what organisations people are from. So Lizzie is part of the Vulcan team. She's out here based in Wollaston. So
Yes, I'm from Ballyful. Did anyone hear of Ballyful?
Yeah.
Ballyful.
yes, so,
So
Yes.
we cook meals for mums and babies and illnesses. And we've got illnesses as long as they've got babies. We supply feeding meals to them.
yes, so, yes, so,
On Monday, I look after Selwyn and Tuesday, between 9 and 3. Rest of the time, I'm a high school teacher. When I'm not at school, I volunteer at Ballyful. It's good fun. I've been in the sector on 17 years because I've got unnamed substance at Leaston. And I took it the kicking fashion living, and I played it on tribute tape and planted for everyone.
yes, so,
I run the operations of Selwyn Parenting Network, charity that's been running for 12 years here in Selwyn, identifying gaps that are out there existing for families, parents, caregivers. Also chair of Selwyn and Labour Families Trust and member of Royston Rotary.
yes, so, 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 yes, so,
Actually, right.
yes, so,
Very actually were great forest.
yes, so,
Reach down like huge. Yeah.
yes, so,
We got through trying to coach.
yes, so,
permanent groups.
yes, so,
Groups have one-off project. Do a big mulch, do a big.
I have been trying, I've been pushing, but we people volunteers of advancing interest.
Yes, so Joey,
yes, so, yes, so,
have we chat about that later? Because I wasn't.
Yeah. I'm involved with Central Community here. We've been going since the late 1990s. So we transport mainly older people to their doctor's appointments, hospital appointments, in-house visiting, and we actually do take a lady who wants to volunteer because they transport to get there. So we take her to the Salvation Army so she can volunteer for a while, just for her mental well-being and that sort of thing. So yes, just to keep her going. I don't think she's ever going to get well, but at least it keeps her going.
yes, so, yes, so, yes, so,
Here I'm an Smithy. I run a garden to table program at Royston School, and I'm really need
Yes, sir.
volunteers to come in and help with the garden side of things and the kitchen side of things. So that's I'm here over there, and I just about to start a new role. The Selwyn District Council actually at the Renourished Community Garden. Finance resource recovery station. So we'll be looking for volunteers too. So I'm a little knowledge on security. Oh yeah.
Also, so Leslie's going to follow up with you guys. I'll get your contacts as well. So we're always looking for groups, projects for groups. And sometimes people go, wow, this is really cool, and you might get a few regular volunteers out of that as well. But for those one-off projects, just get promo out there. But yeah.
yes, so,
I'm Alistair. I'm with the Laurels and Trips and Resurrection. During the winter months, we
Yes, sir.
do on a Friday a free lunch. It's very hard to get people to chicken.
Yes, sir.
A catch. And during the warmer months, we have a 11s.
yes, so, yes, so,
I'm
Yes.
John, also at the Church of Resurrection. Bring the dog spawning.
Yes.
I'm Perk Dean, so I'm from Derby High School, so I'm part-time with at recent time I volunteer. I've been a volunteer for quite a few years on different organisations, you know, whether it's a club one or whether it's concept, all the same. We run kids out breakfasts and things like that. It's hard to get volunteers to come in and needs to help out. And we can also go the other way, and we can have where some students go out and volunteer in the community as well. So I do all the sports at Dublin High School as well. So we require volunteers to help all of the sports teams there because the teachers aren't there to support anymore. So you know, it's all about the kids and you can sort of keep focused on it.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
I'm on the St John Archer, it's the road, we've been up and running for 9 months now. We're still settling out with the volunteers, it's quite a large number. We had a bit of fallout over Christmas. This week closed for a couple of weeks. There's a couple to many places there. And I just wanted to come along just see who's in the community and just the general idea. I mean, obviously we're fully supportive of HR and Auckland, but it's a really difficult situation when you're connected with the community, I think.
Yeah.
There's a couple of little tricks there that I've learned already.
Yeah.
And sit with me through, but it really is, it is a family and I'm really fully involved in that team mentality. So, yeah.
So are you able to accommodate people who bring their children?
Yes.
We do our best, but disability, we're actually quite aware of that and what's mindful at the moment.
Yes.
But we also need to be flexible because it's really a business store and we're not all initiatives. So helping safety get through, like always explain that.
Yeah.
So it's not a personal, you know, confrontation for that person that has to be cool.
I work at Yellow Brick Road. We support in the Selwyn region, support families who have someone with mental illness or they've lost someone to suicide. We typically have two sort of different types of volunteers. The one is the psychology students that come in and have work experience and that goes a long way to their CV and getting placements further down. And we also have families who give us advice on that we can feed through the government on what's happening and finish. I mean, they could be a story.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
Where are you getting those volunteers from?
Mostly from families that we've seen, you know, they've gone through the service and then
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Ray and I'm from the Ellesmere Promotions Trust, which is a organisation that puts on the Leeston Centre Parade, the Leeston Fete. We put on the Fete to raise funds for the Centre Parade, to make the Centre Parade free for everyone. We always provide all the children's entertainment free because not everyone is equal money-wise. We're looking to grow the number of functions that we do per year for the community. It just seems that it does foster that sense of community when we are putting on these events for low cost or free.
Yes. 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 Yes.
Oh, yes, yep.
So we've got Sabrina, who's from mainland football, Errol, who's from volleyball, Ross from Salvation Army, and Liz from Darker Residence Club.
Cool.
Yes. Yes.
My
Yes.
able assistant is taking notes. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So
Yes.
yeah,
Yes.
we've actually answered the already talked about this because you brought up the question around applying for volunteer recognition specific funding.
Yes.
So any questions on anything anyone wants to bring up?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Anyone want to share a good story or a not so good story that they might want some feedback on?
One
Yes.
thing we used, which, I mean, it's very simple, we have painted signs that we use for the suicide bereavement courses, and we're now using those for volunteers as well, but, you know, we're trying to give them an affirmation.
Yeah.
Oh,
Do you get many more of those created?
could
Yes.
do, I'll have a check to
Like,
the.
that we've got a whole thing like church goes
Oh,
that needs
yeah.
something to do. If someone can so quite nicely, they're busy, I think painting one video.
Right,
Oh, you're looking into the live messages.
Yeah, so we had a budget Ballytoll, for volunteers, but it's up to each individual branches to do our fundraising. So we had no money. So I went to Timu and got like a little key ring, a thank you key ring, and a little cup and some a few lollies, and that was my volunteer thing for Christmas. Yeah, so I think it was, and it only cost like $5, $8 sort of thing each per person. So I think that's pretty cool. Because we have no money, but now we're getting money. And I might be able to afford it.
If you have a bit of a budget, then you can do things like after Christmas when all the ribbons and stuff come out half price and just buy bulk stuff and put a cellophane and dress things up. And you can come up with some really kind of just cool looking things that look like they've had a lot of effort put into them. But are actually quite simple. So think about that as well. So some people are better at that than others, but that's not to say that we can't all do it. But one of the things that
Yes. So,
I hear, and I don't know that I've actually seen real evidence of it, but people say, and it's statistically this makes said, that New Zealanders aren't very good at saying thank you. So that's bottom line, isn't it? You know, when you've got volunteers and they've finished their shift and they're going out the door, everyone's busy and you're in a rush and they leave and they've gone. Yeah, it's that thank you.
yes.
It's really simple stuff. And I think sometimes we overcomplicate in our heads what we have to do for recognition.
Yes. So,
I have to be like God.
Yeah.
And then children is behind the door.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is you do amazing job. Yeah, but we don't see also.
Yeah. Sometimes our volunteers don't want to be recognised. They feel like they're doing it, you know, this is what I do and I'm happy because this is what I do. We have to be careful though that
yes. So, yes.
that's okay, except that volunteering is changing and people are changing and we've got more diversity in our communities. So some of those people do need an acknowledgement. And actually we should be celebrating, even if it's not as a thank you, it's a celebration of, hey guys, look what we as a team have achieved, as opposed to a recognition. But essentially it's the same thing, it's making people feel valued.
So one of the things that we do when we're putting on the date in the centre parade is because we're selling stalls.
Yep.
At the fete, is we actually get other volunteer organisations like the Lions and Brass Band and stuff like that, and we actually give them a donation towards their fundraising as well. So it helps with their fundraising.
Yeah.
It's giving back locally.
Giving back locally.
The work that identity is quite fun. For example, like a T-photo in front of the card. You can use Canva to make it pretty, put the branding on it. If you've got people missing, make sure you're on the slogan. So when I used to manage volunteers, I always line them up, get a mugshot of each of them that you're happy with. And you can always do a collage card, whole team on it. So rather with identity, it doesn't cost much to print a photo, it's like 20 something that we use. And don't forget your branding as well. If you get funding, for example, you get $10 t-shirts for your volunteers or with identity, another big one. But also link them back to their purpose. You've done 1,400 hours this year. Thank you. We've raised this amount of money. We've done how many holes, so you get how much mulch. So keep checking your data and make it fun.
Yes. So,
But I do think that we want to have a look at some really good data on social media. Ballytoll's a really good Facebook page to check out because they always talk about the amount of mints and onions and that, like, that, people like that. People go, well, everyone who volunteers for Ballyful will be going, yeah, that's what we do. We just cook up a store.
You go home
Um,
and live inside.
that's the sort of stuff that you share, because that's the sort of people that people talk about, and it's just talking it up really. All that talking it up so that people feel like they're part of a team, so they're less likely to leave. Right, and recruiting volunteers is not going to get any easier, because we've got a limited pool. There's all sorts of stress and strain going on in our communities at the moment. People aren't really feeling able to put their hand up like they may have.
So something my husband and I do every year coming to Christmas is we choose a charity that we would not normally have an exposure to, like Ballyful. And we had volunteered at Ballyful for a cook, just to give a few hours as our Christmas gift. So each year it's a different charity that we choose, but something that we would not be exposed to. So that's a pool of people too. There's a lot of people like us that are older, our kids are growing, and we still want to do stuff. Yeah. But not be committed fully all the time.
And we see that also, so with the group volunteering program, that fits a group of people who sort of 30 through to 60 who are increasingly restricted in the time available to volunteer because of working hours, because we have 7 days shopping available now, numerous late nights and all that good stuff. Whereas, so people aren't getting the break. That's really impacting on sports too. So people who are involved with sports volunteers, people are working these sort of hours that aren't necessarily conducive to having spare time to give back. So the group volunteering program, facilitating businesses, supporting them to give their employees a day off or half a day off to do something. So we're seeing a lot of that going back into the community. And we also try and roll out a few family volunteer days each year as well, so that we're not asking people to take time out of that weekend to volunteer. The whole family goes. It's good role modelling, keeps everyone together, and just keeping those connections going, because that is what keeps our communities, going back to the empathy right at the beginning of the presentation, keeps our communities together and resilient for when and if there's the next crisis or something that's really challenging that we have to face as a community happens. So we've got that cohesion amongst our members.
Yes, like as well, don't make it all work. One thing that surprised me the most in Ballyful was like at 2:30, Karen's like, right, slow down to get out there, bring off it's like, yeah, but okay. And so everyone just downs tools and goes and has conversation together. And that's recognition in itself. Getting a chance to network, get to know people, and if people have got, you get to know what's going on, and that's a thing as well. So trying to really use the ground and get to know your volunteers, and you can deliberately support them in a way that's meaningful for them. Because some people's 10 hours might be something else. It's just being very aware of what they've got going on at the moment. I used to drive such a class, it's great. By tweaking volunteer agreements, it used to be used to a minimum of 2 shifts a month. Well, for some people, it's seasonal workers that doesn't work for them. And I'd be like, well, I can stop. How do you do it? As long as you've got 24 months in the year. So finding a way that works for that person, even if you need to be involved slightly and communication chat to HR and all, but it delivers all those volunteers and make it work. If you can prove them,
we're quite rigid with the hours.
Oh yeah.
I just feel in my own one state I've put down as a casual. Do you can different amount, anything you can accommodate. And it's hard working around. We've got a national business that needs to set, implement.
There's rights and responsibilities on both sides. So organisations have got the responsibility to provide a good, safe place for volunteers to come and do their volunteering. And likewise, volunteers have got a responsibility if they sign up for a shift that's between X and Y on a certain day. That's what they signed up for. If they can't do it, then find a role that they can do. And we need to be really sure that we're transparent in terms of how we manage our volunteers, because if somebody's not pulling their weight and is consistently late or whatever, eventually that annoys another one of your volunteer team. And so essentially you're putting yourself at risk of losing the reliable volunteers. So, as I say, there's always
Yes.
100 roles on our books. If they don't fit your organisation, they'll fit somewhere. So don't ever feel obliged to take a volunteer who you don't think is suitable or isn't going to fit well with your team and understands the mahi that you're doing, because that can cause bigger problems down the track.
Recognition can be a very tiny good vibe with any card as well. So, you know, leaving the temporary agreement or help refine it with the red game.
Yes. Yes.
Look at me, that's a few years ago. So that's my contact details. If you want to get a hold of me, we're sending out the PowerPoint and the resources that I've shared. I'll send the links through to Christine of those as well. You've got everything you need to ask more questions. And yeah, just have a think about nominations for awards. It's always a really nice event.
Yes.
Afternoon too.
Entertainment. And also, give you the name Tuesday, I'll be at the library, typically at 12:30. So go and belong to the chat. Let me email time or to the kind of meeting or after that time as well. But Tuesday, we chat.
And if so Lizzie's also already given you the date for the reimbursement. We've also got for those of you who are wondering about police vetting and stuff like that, police vetting takes Wellington will be joining us via Zoom on what dates that was it?
I think it looks like I've got a list.
Yeah, I think they went through it. Yes, if you've got questions about police vetting, you want to actually ask on live, but sometimes questions come up when you put someone there, because we'll just refer you to the police vetting unit if you ask us, in case they've changed the rules since the last one we asked. So we'll be joined by them and also by IAD in the next.
So all volunteers have to be police vetted?
So
Or does it depend on the type of organisation?
If you are police checking your paid staff, then rule of thumb would be that you'd be police checking your volunteer staff. But there are certain roles that should be police checked and certain roles that must be police checked. The must be police checked ones are around vulnerable people. So if you're dealing with youngsters, older people, people with disabilities, they automatically come to that category. If you're recruiting through our platform, we will ask you to indicate if you're going to be police checking and the reason that you're police checking, so that people can clearly see whether it's worth their while perhaps pursuing that or why you're actually asking. So yeah, we shouldn't be police checking for the sake of it, but if it's a policy, then it's a policy.
Basically, do it as a little bit deterrent as well.
There are other ways to check as well in terms of reference checking. And if you have a look on our website, there's resources around that as well. So because police vetting is very timely, time consuming. So at the moment it's about 5 weeks, I understand. It means that a whole another set of challenges around keeping your volunteers warm while you wait for their police check come through. What does that look like? That's a whole different subject, but we've got plenty of ideas that we could share about that if you want.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Okay. Good to see you. Thank you all for coming out on this board today.
Thank you very much for your time. And the next session.